Hey guys, so my presentation is going to be on the Red Scare. The Red Scare is often identified as hysteria over the perceived threat posed by communists by the United States. It began in 1917 through 1920, however it intensified in the 1940s. The term Reds was associated with the communists because of their allegiance of the red Soviet flag. Tensions and fears concerning the Red Scare greatly intensified during the Cold War between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Government concerns about the impact of the communism allowed for the federal employees to be analyzed to determine their loyalty to their government. The first Red Scare is often dated to have occurred in the wake of the First World War. In 1917, Vladimir Lenin led the Russian Revolution that saw Romanov dynasty topple. The events of the Russian Revolution of 1917 also saw the rise of the Communist Party and inspired and promoted international fear of anarchists and Bolsheviks. Consequently, the Bolsheviks also promoted the global revolutions, such as United States labor strikes. First Red Scare Part 2. Following the press sensationalizing the labor strikes as being caused to disrupt the American way of life, the Sedition of 1918 was established. The act was mainly used to target individuals identified to criticize the U.S. government and in the monitoring labor union leaders and radicals as perceived threats. The following year, 1919, witnessed the emergence of anarchist bombings targeting government officials and law enforcement officers. A series of bombs went off in cities such as New York, Cleveland, and Boston. The Red Scare Part 3. The Palmer raids increased tension in the United States as it saw numerous U.S. citizens get arrested for being radicals, imprisoned, and denied access to a lawyer. The Palmer raids were used to spread fear among the communist enthusiasts as strict actions were taken against them. For instance, several states were quick to pass criminal syndicalism laws, and a total of 5 New York legislators were denied seats simply because they identified themselves as socialists. Also, in 1921, the conviction of Sacco and Vanzetti created a public outcry regarding its judicial lynching. Cold War concerns about communism. The end of the Second World War led to frequent conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union as they engaged in the series of largely economic and political clashes. These clashes come to be identified as the Cold War. As the Cold War heated up, it increased the U.S. government's concerns that communist sympathizers may be actively working as Soviet spies, hence posing a significant threat to the national security. McCarthyism and the Red Scare. One of the first pioneering efforts on the United States government took place in 1938, whereby the U.S. House of Representatives formed the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. The main goal and objective of HUAC were to investigate communist activities taking place on American soil. Consequently, the investigations often focused on exposing communist sympathizers working inside the federal government or working in any other industry in the U.S. McCarthyism and the Red Scare Part 2. McCarthy rose to power as yet another congressional investigator advocating for the anti-communist crusade. McCarthyism is identified as the practice of presenting unfounded accusations of treason and supervision against an individual or group of people, most particularly when related to U.S. concerns such as socialism and communism. McCarthy employed the use of fear and force in charging anyone who disagreed with his political views with charges of disloyalty. Most often, victims of McCarthy suffered serious damage to their reputations and jobs. J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. As the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Edgar played a critical role in aiding numerous investigations of communist activities in the United States. In 1950, Edgar called upon every law enforcement officer and agency, patriotic individuals, and organizations to report to relevant authorities on anything that might indicate some subversive activities, sabotage, or espionage. Edgar played a critical role in high-profile legal cases, which included the conviction of at least 12 high-ranking American leaders. Hysteria and growing fear of communism. The growing fear of communists and the Red Scare increased due to various international events. For instance, in September 1949, the U.S. community and government were shocked by the news by Truman on the successful detonation and testing of a nuclear bomb by the Soviet Union. Additionally, the Korean War that prompted the U.S. and the Soviet Union to intervene further caused a rift between the two countries. The Red Scare economic impact. Putting aside the direct impact of the Red Scare on human cost, such as increased harassment and discrimination due to McCarthyism, the Red Scare also had significant economic impact on the United States. The impacts range from damage to national infrastructure, increased innovation, which can be identified by the introduction of the atomic bomb, rise in individual debts, a significant decline in working population due to fear, and disruption to normal economic activities. So pretty much just to discuss how and why the Red Scare started, the earliest American concerns of the possible influence and impact of communism initially begun with the establishment of the first communist state by Vladimir Lenin in 1917. Tension between the United States and the Soviet Union would continue to increase mainly because of their ideological differences. As a result, the concerns and fears brought by the communism became known as the Red Scare. The Red Scare got real heated in the beginning of the Cold War during the 1940s. The topic is mainly classified as a historical overview of American history. Subsequently, studying the topic as a part of American history helps an individual have a better understanding of the current national and global political, economic, and social environments. Consequently, understanding the concept of the Red Scare as a topic, in my opinion, helps build a framework on which to base America's political culture and relationship with the Soviet Union. So in conclusion, the Red Scare phenomenon mainly involved two nations in the conflict, the United States and the Soviet Union. The Bolshevik Revolution of Russia in 1917 is noted to have triggered the Red Scare, as the United States' fear and concerns that the revolution would spread increase. On the other hand, the second Red Scare is considered to have been perpetuated by a series of high-profile international and domestic events ranging from the Chinese Civil War, the Korean War, and the detonation of the atomic bomb by the Soviet Union. Okay, these are my references, and thank you.